The current state of daytime television reflects a period of transition, shaped by the departure of established figures and the introduction of new hosts attempting to redefine familiar formats. Within this environment, the relationship between Wendy Williams and Sherri has become a focal point for discussions about continuity, replacement, and control within syndicated talk programming. Wendy Williams built a dominant presence in daytime television over more than a decade through her program, The Wendy Williams Show. The show's structure relied heavily on the Hot Topics segment, where Williams delivered commentary on celebrity news with a direct and often polarizing style. This approach established a distinctive identity for the program and contributed to consistent audience engagement. Over time, Williams became closely associated with the format itself, and her influence extended beyond the show into broader entertainment media. Her departure from the program followed a period marked by health challenges and legal oversight involving a conservatorship. These developments led to an extended absence from broadcasting and ultimately created a vacancy within the established time slot. The absence of a central figure who had defined the program's tone for years introduced uncertainty for both audiences and producers. Into this context stepped Sherri, a comedian and television personality with prior experience as a co-host on The View. Shepherd initially appeared as a guest host during Williams's absence, maintaining continuity for the audience while the future of the program remained unclear. Her approach differed from Williams' style, emphasizing a more conversational tone and a focus on personal engagement rather than confrontational commentary. The situation evolved when Shepherd was selected to host a new program, Sherri, which occupied the same broadcast slot previously held by Williams's show. Although presented as a separate production, the continuity in scheduling and format led to comparisons between the two programs. The transition marked a shift in both leadership and editorial direction within the same segment of daytime television. The change extended beyond on-screen presentation to include structural decisions behind the scenes. Reports indicated that key members of the previous production team, including executive producers David Perler and Suzanne Bass, were not retained for the new show. Shepherd assembled a different production team, including individuals from her own professional network. This restructuring was interpreted by some observers as a clear departure from the framework associated with Williams's tenure. These developments contributed to a perception of discontinuity between the two eras. For longtime viewers, the removal of familiar production figures and the introduction of a new hosting style reinforced the sense that the transition represented a complete reset rather than an extension of an existing format. At the same time, for producers and network executives, the shift reflected a strategic decision to reposition the program within a changing media landscape. The contrast between Williams's established identity and Shepherd's approach highlights broader dynamics within syndicated television. Programs built around strong individual personalities often face challenges when those personalities are no longer present. Replacing a host in such cases involves not only maintaining audience engagement, but also redefining the tone and direction of the show. Within this context, the relationship between Williams's legacy and Shepherd's role as successor became central to how the transition was understood. The discussion has been shaped by differing interpretations of whether the changes represented a natural evolution of the format or a deliberate effort to move away from the previous era. As Sherri continued to establish itself within the daytime schedule, reports began to emerge suggesting internal tensions between Sherri and the production structure supporting the show. While the program maintained stable ratings and remained commercially viable, industry commentary indicated that the relationship between Shepherd and the production company, Debmar Mercury, had become increasingly strained. According to multiple reports, one source of friction involved contract negotiations tied to future seasons of the show. Shepherd was said to have requested a salary increase while also proposing adjustments to the production schedule that would allow her to pursue additional acting projects. These discussions, while not uncommon in television production, were described as contributing to a breakdown in alignment between the host and network executives. At the same time, commentary surrounding the working environment behind the scenes began to circulate. While the show's on-air presentation emphasized a positive and conversational tone, reports suggested that internal dynamics were becoming more complex. These accounts described a growing distance between Shepherd and decision-makers within the production company, raising questions about the long-term direction of the program. While these internal developments were unfolding, attention also returned to Wendy Williams and her status outside of the daytime television circuit. For an extended period, public discussion had focused on her health challenges and legal situation, often portraying her as unable to return to broadcasting. However, more recent reports indicated a different assessment. Medical and legal updates suggested that Williams had undergone evaluations related to her cognitive capacity and had performed successfully in those assessments. These developments contributed to a shift in how her condition was discussed in media coverage. Rather than focusing solely on limitations, the conversation began to include the possibility of a structured return to public life. This change in perception coincided with renewed activity from Williams's representatives. Reports indicated that discussions were taking place between her team and executives connected to Debmar Mercury regarding potential future projects. Although these discussions were not immediately confirmed as formal agreements, their timing introduced a new layer of uncertainty into the existing production environment. Within the broader narrative, the possibility of Williams returning to daytime television created a direct point of tension with the ongoing presence of Shepherd's program. The same network infrastructure that had supported the transition to Sherri was now being linked to conversations about a potential revival associated with Williams. As these parallel developments progressed, the situation surrounding Shepherd's show moved toward a decisive outcome. Reports confirmed that Sherri would not be renewed beyond its current run. The decision was presented publicly as part of broader programming changes, but its timing in relation to discussions about Williams's return became a central focus of industry analysis. From a production perspective, the non-renewal of the show was not attributed to a decline in audience performance. Instead, it was interpreted as a strategic decision within the network's long-term planning. By ending Shepherd's program, the network created the opportunity to reintroduce a figure whose presence had previously defined the time slot. This sequence of events contributed to the perception that Shepherd had been placed in a transitional role rather than a permanent one. While she had successfully maintained the program during a period of uncertainty, the evolving situation suggested that the original structure associated with Williams had remained a point of reference for future planning. At the same time, preparations connected to Williams's potential return began to receive increased attention. Reports indicated that production considerations were being developed to accommodate her specific needs, including adjustments related to her physical condition. These plans reflected an effort to integrate practical requirements into the design of a potential relaunch. Financial aspects of the situation also became part of the discussion. Reports suggested that Williams had reached a settlement with Debmar Mercury related to the circumstances surrounding her initial departure from the show. While details of such agreements are typically confidential, their inclusion in media coverage reinforced the sense that negotiations between Williams and the network had advanced beyond preliminary discussions. Within this context, the relationship between Shepherd's program and Williams's legacy became more clearly defined. What had initially appeared as a replacement designed to sustain the time slot evolved into a situation where the original host was again positioned as central to the network's future plans. The storyline therefore reflects a convergence of internal negotiations, shifting public perceptions, and strategic decision-making within the production company. The overlap between Shepherd's tenure and the renewed interest in Williams created a scenario in which both figures became part of the same evolving narrative, shaped by factors extending beyond on-screen performance. The developments involving Wendy Williams and Sherri Shepherd illustrate the structural realities of daytime television, where programming decisions are shaped by long-term brand value, audience recognition, and strategic control over established time slots. What initially appeared to be a straightforward transition from one host to another has instead revealed a more complex process involving contractual negotiations, shifting public narratives, and evolving production priorities. For Sherri Shepherd, the conclusion of Sherri reflects the limitations of operating within a framework that was originally built around a different personality. Despite maintaining stable ratings and delivering a consistent on-air presence, her position was ultimately influenced by decisions that extended beyond performance metrics. The non-renewal of the show suggests that the network's long-term strategy remained closely tied to the identity established during Williams's tenure. For Wendy Williams, the situation represents a potential re-entry into a space she previously defined. The recent evaluations regarding her mental capacity, combined with reported negotiations involving Debmar Mercury, have shifted the narrative surrounding her public status. Where earlier coverage emphasized absence and uncertainty, current discussions increasingly focus on the conditions under which a return could be structured. The preparations associated with that potential return indicate a calculated approach. Adjustments to production design, considerations related to her physical health, and reported financial agreements suggest that any relaunch would be carefully managed. These elements point to a broader strategy aimed at balancing audience expectations with the practical realities of her current situation. The contrast between Shepard's tenure and Williams's prospective comeback highlights a recurring pattern within syndicated television. Programs that are strongly identified with a single host often retain that association even after periods of absence. When a replacement is introduced, the role can function as a temporary solution rather than a permanent shift in identity. The eventual decision to revert to the original figure reflects the enduring value of brand recognition within the industry. At the same time, the situation underscores how public perception can influence production decisions. The renewed discussion surrounding Williams's condition, particularly reports indicating improved cognitive assessment results, contributed to a shift in how her return was viewed by both audiences and executives. As that perception changed, the strategic balance between continuity and restoration moved in favor of reinstating a familiar presence. The outcome also reflects the influence of corporate decision-making within media production. Networks and production companies operate within competitive environments where programming choices are evaluated based on long-term audience engagement and commercial viability. In this case, the decision to conclude Sherri and pursue a potential revival connected to Williams suggests a prioritization of established audience loyalty over the development of a newer format. Within the broader context of daytime television, the situation demonstrates how quickly roles can change when underlying conditions evolve. Shepard's transition from guest host to permanent replacement, followed by the eventual conclusion of her show, illustrates the fluid nature of hosting positions within syndicated programming. Similarly, Williams's shift from absence to potential return reflects how narratives can be redefined as new information emerges. The relationship between the two figures, while not defined by direct confrontation, has become central to how this transition is interpreted. Shepard's role in maintaining the time slot during Williams's absence and the subsequent decision to move away from her program place both hosts within the same structural narrative, shaped by decisions made at the production and network level. As the industry moves forward, the situation serves as a case study in how legacy, performance, and strategic planning intersect within television media. The developments surrounding Wendy Williams, Sherri Shepherd, and Debmar Mercury reflect the broader mechanisms that determine how programs evolve, how hosts are positioned, and how audiences respond to change. Ultimately, the transition underscores a central principle of the medium. In formats built around strong individual identities, the original association between host and program can continue to influence decisions long after the initial structure has changed.